This is Talking Drupal, a weekly chat about web design and development from a group of people with one thing in common. We love Drupal. This is episode 300, Milestones. Welcome to Talking Drupal. Today is a special episode of Talking Drupal. We look back over 300 episodes, pick some of our favorite moments from Talking Drupal's past. We're also going to be joined by a few special guests today. Also, we're bidding farewell to Stephen, the founder of Talking Drupal. I'm John Picozzi, and as usual, joining me today is Stephen Cross. Stephen Cross, what's going on with you?
Hey, I guess we'll address the elephant in the room a little later. So I did this cool thing last week. I bought a Blink outdoor camera. That's not cool in itself, but it's where I put it that's cool. I actually put it on my back deck about a foot from the ground, pointing at the ground, where I have a lot of critter activity. And I've been watching chipmunks, groundhogs, bunnies, birds just coming in at the front of my deck. There's a little hole in the ground that goes under the deck. And these animals come in and out of that hole all day long. And it's been a blast to watch. So
it's funny because that sounds like people are like, oh, that's boring. But I literally stopped for 5 minutes the other day and watched a bird eat a worm and a chipmunk in my driveway. I was like, what is, oh my gosh, look at this. And I was like, it's why Animal Planet and like the National Geographic channel have channels on TV, because watching animals is so damn entertaining.
It's super fun when you put on the camera in the morning and then you see at 2:00 in the morning, there's a raccoon staring in the camera.
You're like, okay, yeah. Trash panda, you get out of here.
That's right.
Also joining us this week is Nick Laughlin. Nick, what's going on with you?
Not too much. This is a big episode. Pretty excited about 300. It's kind of sad Steven's going to be not joining us after this. But from work, I've been working on upgrading an API for a client recently, and that's always fun. Got a lot of complexity there to untangle, trying to figure out how to make things more efficient, a little bit faster. So it's been a challenging week, couple of weeks.
So when you're working with APIs, do you usually use Postman for that? Or are you using something else to kind of like look at the API in real time?
Usually it's like if I'm trying to control, it's Postman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Jason, welcome back for your third week now. How are things going with you?
Good. Had some nice time off with our son and his girlfriend visiting last week, and my brother and his wife and two sons are at my parents' house in Wickford. So this week, so getting a chance to spend some time with them. And in the middle of it, we launched 6 websites for the state of Rhode Island last week. Last Thursday morning, we had 6 new sites on our Drupal platform launch, all without a hitch, and all of them benchmarking 3 to 4 times faster than their previous iterations. So we're super excited with how the platform is shaping up.
Yeah, I saw it. So your brother doesn't live around here, right? So he's visiting from afar?
They live in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Got it. Okay, so not that far, but
only 1,000 miles.
You and him got on the bikes. I saw. Was that accurate?
Yeah, I think this is one of the things of which I am most proud. Is I had a life as a full-time bicycle racer before I went to college, and I gave cycling to my whole family. My dad started riding back in the, I guess, late 90s, and was riding his bike up until now. I mean, he and I went for rides last fall. He's in his 80s. My mom likewise, and she used to ride with my dad some, and my brother got into riding with one of my old bikes as well. And so he's also been riding quite a lot lately. So we went out for a wonderful over an hour and a half ride. We got about 27 miles in, and just had a really nice time. It was great.
So this week for me, I've been doing a little reflection in preparation for this show, And 300 is a big milestone for us. We have a lot of history. We've been doing this for 8 going on 9 years now, which completely blows my mind every time I say it. But thinking, we have alluded to this being Stevens, I'm air quoting here, final episode. I'm sure he'll be back to visit from time to time. But, I wanted to take a moment to thank Steven for kicking this whole thing off. Talking Drupal would not exist without Steven coming to Nick and I and saying, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And Jason was there for the beginning, and Jay and a whole bunch of people. So we're gonna go back through in this episode, talk about those 300 past episodes, and talk about in a little bit more detail Steven's departure. But before we do that, we have a special guest joining us. Joining us live from Antwerp, Belgium, the creator and project lead of Drupal, co-founder and CTO at Acquia, the man that does not need any more of an introduction. Dries, welcome to Talking Drupal.
Well, yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me crash the show.
Absolutely. If you are a longtime listener, or if you're just joining us for this momentous occasion, Dries has been on episode 38 and 200. So you can kind of go back and listen to those, and how much Drupal has changed in those, 200 episodes or so. So Dries, we got a couple of questions for you here. The first one, over the last 2 years, the Drupal community has really stepped up, taking on some challenges with Drupal Cares, coronavirus, diversity, and inclusion. What lasting effects do you think those events will have on the Drupal community?
Good question. I mean, I think it will strengthen us, obviously. I think it makes us a stronger, more resilient organization. Obviously diversity and inclusion is really important. It helps with those things, but also brings more creativity, more new ideas, more well-roundedness, if you will, to the project, which is all wonderful. And I think all of these things will help us drive adoption too, because we want to build a product that is loved by everyone, ideally, right? And so having a diverse team of contributors will help us build a great product that many people can be successful with. And then on Drupal Cares, I like that we're exploring different funding models. I mean, it's one way to think about it. It was our record fundraiser in the history of Drupal, and that's a good skill set to have as a project. And we use it when we needed it the most, which also is actually reassuring that the Drupal community, stepped up and helped when we needed it the most. But it's a good skill set to have for any, volunteer / nonprofit / collaborative community. These things happen in the history of Drupal. We've had a few of these moments where we really needed the community to come together quickly, and never at this scale. And it was really nice to see that we did. It was absolutely wonderful. And I think it just really reinforces how special of a community we have and what we can do together. And I think it makes us stronger.
Do you think? Let me ask you this: going all the way back to the beginning days of Drupal, mm-hmm. did you ever imagine a community built around this CMS that would step up for these events and show such unity and closeness?
No, absolutely not. I mean, for those that don't know the story, I mean, I started Drupal for myself, but for a community of one. And my expectations were very, were all about me having fun and learning and dabbling with new technology. And then I made it available to some of my, friends at the dorm, but they were just end users. They weren't even collaborating. And then some of them started collaborating and started growing and growing and growing. And I mean, I remember helping to organize, I should say, the very first DrupalCon in 2005. And was DrupalCon. Yeah, it was in Antwerp, where I'm right now. And I could not believe like 30 or 40 people showed up to talk about Drupal for a week. Like, it blew my mind because up until that point, I worked on Drupal at night, on the weekends, and we were talking amongst ourselves in email and that kind of stuff, but I didn't really talk about it with my real life friends or family. It was just something that I did, and I didn't think it was that interesting actually to share with my friends. And so when like 30 or 40 people decided to travel to Antwerp from Canada, from the West Coast, from Hungary, from Germany, I'm like, that's crazy. And I had to like reorganize my whole schedule, and I couldn't believe it. So even then in 2005, and that was like 3 or 4 years into Drupal.
Wow.
My expectations were still very different.
I think, when was San Francisco? Was that 2009?
I think it was 2009 or 10. Yeah. And that was like crazy,
it was like
big.
3,000 people.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was insane. That was the first one that I went to. And that was such an eye opener. I mean, I'd only been working with Drupal for a year or two at that point. And to see a community at that scale, already with things like a group of people around education and a group of people around all these different uses of it was really pretty mind blowing.
Yeah, I remember walking into that room, and by the way, it was in the, how do you pronounce it?
It was in the Moscone Center. Yeah,
and I mean, it's for Steve Jobs. This is like big presentation. I mean, like, it's so massive, and like you walk in there, and it's like just got goosebumps, and obviously we actually didn't fill the room. It was so big. We had like felt like a little part of that large room. But yeah, that was special, Jason. Yeah, that was a very special DrupalCon.
I mean, that was, John and I had been working together at that point for a year or two, and it's just kind of amazing to think like all of these friendships and connections just here, on this screen, but then all over the world in those intervening years, and it just gets bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a show about milestones, and speaking of that, there's a big one coming up towards the end of this year. Drupal 8 is approaching end of life, and it's a little interesting because Drupal 8 is end of lifing before Drupal 7. The Drupal 7 one was extended because of COVID. I'm curious about that decision, what the reaction is going to be once Drupal 8 no longer needs to be supported. Do you think that will kind of push people that are still in Drupal 7 to upgrade, or?
Sorry, Drupal 7 is supported for a little longer. Drupal 8 is end of life, right? So as you pointed out, Nick, it's kind of unusual, I guess, that we'll support Drupal 7 longer than Drupal 8. But just because we recognize that it's hard to upgrade from 7, and that it's a lot easier to upgrade from 8 to 9. And so we wanted to give people and organizations plenty of time to upgrade. I mean, I think we'll see like a bump or an increase in upgrades for sure. I mean, I think people and organizations tend to wait until the last minute. I mean, I see it with other software, people kind of delay upgrading things until they have to, unless it's completely automated or almost completely automated, right? But so I think having that deadline is actually a healthy thing because it will trigger a lot of upgrades around the world. And I feel like the upgrades are pretty robust too now. We've spent a lot of time refining the upgrade paths and testing them and tweaking them, and both for 7 and 8. So we'll see, but I feel optimistic. I'm optimistic that we'll see an increase of upgrades.
So it sounds like August 2022 is going to be a really busy time of year for those Drupal 7 site owners, right?
Yeah, and maybe for all of the Drupal agencies too.
Yes. Any chance that date would get extended, do you think?
Which date? The Drupal 8 date?
Drupal 7.
The Drupal 7 date?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we have a commercial support program in place, which allow Drupal shops, Drupal companies, agencies like yours and others to provide commercial support after that date. And that's what we did with previous major releases of Drupal, and I would say successfully. And that allows us to extend it at a fee I actually don't know what the ongoing fees are, but it could be reasonable potentially.
Is that going to happen with Drupal 8 as well? Because I know that happened with Drupal 6, will happen with Drupal 7. Have people put together a support plan for Drupal 8 as well?
We don't have plans for that right now, so I think unlikely.
Your plan should be upgrade to Drupal 9.
That's right. Yeah, and we spent so much time and efforts of so many people in the community to make that easy, and we have a lot of proof points that it is easy. I mean, I talked about one example in my Dries note, but Pac-12, which produces college sports TV, I guess. They have a very, very complex setup that they built with a large engineering team, and it actually powers not only their website but actually also the TVs, like the tickers that scroll by at the bottom of the screen. All that content is pushed from Drupal to these TV channels, as well as the schedules, et cetera, et cetera. So it's very strategic, complex Drupal implementation. And I forgot the exact data, but the upgrade from 7 to 8 took a whole team of people, like 10 plus people, like months to upgrade. And then not too long ago, they upgraded from 8 to 9, and it took let's say more junior, one relatively junior developer, like a couple of weeks for this complex of an application. So literally night and day to upgrade a very, very complex Drupal site. So I'm optimistic that people will upgrade and that we don't have to bother with extended end of life support. And the other piece to that actually is, unlike Drupal 7, Drupal 8 is much more dependent on third-party components like Symfony and others. And some of the reason why we upgrade from 8 to 9 is because we have to manage the end of life of third-party components, and it's really hard for us to provide support, security support for things that aren't actually things that we built, or maintain. So, these are some of the reasons. It's much easier, and third-party components that force us to upgrade, let's say.
Yeah, I think in the long run, I think that's been a good thing. I think when these decisions first came about, I remember there was a lot of positive and negative feedback on introducing those dependencies to something that's outside of the Drupal world. But gosh, it has made it so much more accessible to incorporate things like Pattern Lab and all these other, build processes and tool chains and things from the wider web world. And I think having that sort of forcing function to keep us moving forward is, I think, a really healthy thing. It keeps stuff from turning into another Drupal 6 or another Drupal 7 that just, lags on forever.
Yeah. Yeah. And the continuous innovation that comes with it is awesome too, right? It's not just that, but we have continuous innovation, new features coming available. When there's a new version of Drupal, a lot of modules continue to work instead of having to rebuild the world, if you will. So I think it's much better. But, big thank you to all of the people that helped make that possible, because we made a trade-off, right? Like we said, we're going to make it easier to upgrade. We're going to make it easier to constantly innovate, but it comes at a cost of, managing backwards compatibility, which means we have to be very thoughtful about how we evolve Drupal as well as how we do release management. So definitely more work for our contributors, but to the benefit of, I would say, a lot of end users. But I think it was the right trade-off looking back.
Well, Dries, thanks for joining us on the 300, and thanks for joining us in your evening. It must be past dinner time by now, right?
I just finished dinner. That's no problem. I'm used to working, after dinner, let's say. Yeah, it's fun. And this doesn't feel like work. This is all fun.
Hey, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners before we let you go?
Yeah, well, I want to thank you, Stephen, for, doing this for 300 episodes. That's crazy in a way. And the persistence and the energy that you've brought and the impact that this show has had on Drupal, and sharing information about Drupal has been an amazing contribution. So I guess I wanted to thank you specifically for this contribution.
Yeah, thanks. It's been a blast. I'm sad I'm moving on, but it's been a lot of fun doing this for 8 years. I'm not completely disappearing, but I won't be here on a weekly basis. But it's just been a lot of fun hanging out with these guys for 8 years every week. It's hard to believe.
Yeah. Well, I was in number 200 and 300.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'd be honored to be part of 400, and you can join as well.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, the amount of work that you put into this, like John, when you said in the beginning, you were like, yeah, you came to us and we kind of put this together. And it wouldn't be here even just the last 8 years, Stephen. I mean, we came up with topics together, obviously, but you put together the show notes, you put together the website, put together
you gotta hold
the
on.
Production.
That's the next.
Hey, I'm the one editing this. I can keep this in.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Feel free. You can rearrange it however you like.
But yeah, it's amazing. I mean, even just 2 months in of me editing, or 6 weeks or whatever, has been really eye-opening how much effort's gone in behind the scenes.
Real question is, do you have another 100 episodes? Because now Dries has committed us to 100 episodes.
I mean, we've committed to 50, so it's another year after that.
Yeah,
I think we can do it.
We can make it 10 years. 10 years of Talking Drupal.
Oh my God.
And the reality sets in.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I can't believe it. Like thinking about that, 8 years, 9 years, 10 years, like when you asked me, Stephen, to do the show, I remember thinking like, yeah, that'll be interesting. And I expected, like most podcasts, they get to 5 episodes. That's kind of like when I initially committed, I kind of figured, hey, we'll probably try it out for 8-10 episodes, see what happens. Then it'll probably die off. We'll go back to the book club, right? And here we are 300 episodes later, 8 years later, still recording.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. I mean, just looking back over, when I was looking back over all of the episodes, we never mind thinking about like which episodes I liked. I was just thinking about what life was like at each of these different points in time, and thinking about, finding one where we were talking about, talking about the process of writing a book. I mean, that book came out in 2014. I mean, like there's so much of life and Drupal. I mean, I've been working on the web since 1994, but Drupal kind of became a thing in like 2007, and then 2009 going to a first DrupalCon and first couple of web conferences, and then started speaking at web conferences. And it was DrupalCon London where I gave my first talk on web fonts, and that's been the whole focus of a career for 10 years since then. And it always amazed me that the Drupal community was so interested in that stuff, that I'd get to go talk about such a nerdy little subtopic, about fonts and typography, at what was a pretty tech-driven community. There was not a lot of design stuff on the Drupal docket early on, in a lot of the early DrupalCons. So it's always been kind of amazing that I've had that opportunity, and just to watch those things in parallel and see, periodically coming back on the show with you guys and seeing how it progressed, how the format changed, how it evolved, and how you guys kind of honed in on a way to keep it sustainable. It's impressive to me. It really is.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, and I'm kind of looking forward to like stepping out of it and looking at the show from a different perspective. Like maybe Jason, what you have is you've probably seen the show transition over time, but I'm not sure the three of us have seen that, right? Because we're kind of in it, not looking at it from the outside. So I'm not sure that we've seen it transition. It seems like it's been the same thing for 8 years, but maybe it hasn't.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's definitely some things I see that are different. I'm not recording from a Starbucks anymore.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, we've learned a lot, right?
But it's a lot of those things. But I mean, I think, thinking about that idea of what is sustainable, and in all of these different ways in our lives. What's manageable, what other things are we doing? What are the ways that you can, hey, it's why we use Drupal. We use Drupal to make it easier for us to build complex websites and applications. It's a shortcut. And the more we use it, the better we get at it. And the more you guys have evolved the way that you make the show. Like we started out as, with a Word doc and a live stream on YouTube, that was like, we kept it like as
Google
low tech as possible.
Yeah.
But over time, figuring out ways to improve the quality, to streamline the editing process, to make it simpler. Just those little things about like, okay, just be quiet, because it's easier to find a quiet spot in the audio than it is a visible signal of some kind, that's not on screen for as long, that you can't view at a distance, basically.
Yep.
That's it's a good parallel to what we all do every day with this platform.
So before we move on, I do want to make a programming note. Steven's passing the torch to Nick and I, and he's stepping back from weekly recordings. Clearly, that's been obvious from now. But have no fear, listeners. We'll be bringing Steven back, and from time to time, and he'll be doing some work behind the scenes with Talking Drupal. So he's not going to be here weekly, but he'll be around. Some interesting stats that we dug up for our 300th episode. 299 episodes, actually. So this is 300. There is the one missing episode. Again, air quotes, right? Do you want to talk about that a little bit, Nick? The missing episode?
Yeah, we made show notes for episode 206 and then ended up not recording that episode. We recorded a different show notes, but we still counted. We just missed episode 206. It was never recorded, never released.
So there's a little Easter egg for all those listeners out there. Over the course of the 300 episodes, we've had 5 hosts, 5 guest hosts, and right around 120 guests. Quite a lot of people.
120 different guests?
120 different guests.
Oh, okay. Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. We really ramped up recently too, because we used to go a few episodes between guests, and in the last couple of years I feel like we've had guests.
So we have one person that has been all 3 of those things: a guest host, and a host, and he's joining us today. Jason, thanks for coming to episode 300.
Hey, I want to make a point. I want to make a point about the 299. By the way, while we said that, we kind of framed it like maybe we didn't record 300 episodes. We also recorded episodes that we never released,
and we re-recorded episodes. So we might actually be up to 305, depending on how you're counting.
I think
I want to know which ones we haven't released, because
there's at least one, maybe 2. There was a period of time where we kind of recorded a few in like a short period of time because we knew we were going to have some gaps coming up. And we thought it was like during vacation time or something. We thought we were going to have some gaps that we need to fill, but we never needed them. And they just sat there.
So that's coming on the B-sides and best of compilation.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Or we'll just release episode 206 and it'll just be all of them.
Right. This is like a 4.5 hours episode.
The episode 250 will be our best of compilation, including all of the missing footage.
Bonus stat: our longest episode to date was not even about Drupal. It was about the home assistant, local home automation.
Oh my gosh!
That was like 2.5 hours.
And part 2.
We recorded over 2 separate days.
Yeah,
man. So jumping into our, again, air quotes, I'm doing a lot of this primary topic. We're going to talk about some of our favorite Talking Drupal episodes over the past 8 years. And we're going to have some stat breaks in there. And then we're going to hear from some community members as well. So the rest of this episode is going to be, it's been fun filled to this point, but it's going to be jam-packed with fun from here on out, folks. So looking back, I kind of looked back and was like, wow, there's a lot of content here. And, I picked 3 that I think were pivotal moments for me, both fun wise and education wise. My first one was, I don't know if it was our first Christmas special, but the night before DrupalCon.
I think it was our only Christmas special.
Probably was, one and done sort of thing. But I don't know. I really enjoyed that. I don't know why, but it was funny. I thought maybe because
you wrote that, didn't you?
I wrote that. Yeah, maybe, shameless self-promotion, but
I mean, we collaborated on it. I think you wrote it though, but yeah, it was fun.
I think I did. I did the initial, and then you guys kind of cleaned it up a little bit, but yeah, that's a fun one. That was episode 79. If you're looking to look back at that, it's
I think I was in Colombia for that one too.
It's yeah, we were kind of all over the place, right?
Yep.
I think that was right around when I was winding down as a regular host.
That did it for you. That was the last
that could have been it.
The last nail in the coffin there.
Jason's like they jumped the shark.
Yeah, we gave John control over an episode, and Jason was out the next.
He's like, they're doing remakes. I'm out of here. The next episode was an episode that Stephen and Nick actually kind of spearheaded and talked about. They did most of the talking. I know, surprising, but that was the Drupal 8 cache system episode, and it was so interesting to me because if everybody thinks back to Drupal 7, and then Drupal 8 came along with a brand new caching system and the addition of cache tags and a whole new caching layer. That episode was one that I think I referenced, months, if not years into the future after recording it. I was like, cache tags, what a revolution.
Yeah, they're pretty powerful. Yeah, I remember that episode too, actually.
For whatever reason, that one always sticks out to me. I don't know why, but it does.
Might be fun to revisit that topic sometime too.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's definitely something. Like the cache system is getting better, but there's still some gotchas along the way. But again, much improved from Drupal 7. The last one for me, and I think this is like when I felt like we made it, was going back to episode 38 when we had Dries on for the first time. I'm like, wait. Dries wants to come on our podcast. That was a fun one. That was a moment for me.
Did we have a video recording of that one? Or is it just audio? Does anyone know?
No, that was probably video.
I can double check.
Because I think that's at the point when we were still just broadcasting on YouTube.
Yeah, we were doing Hangouts.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah, Google Hangouts, right? We started.
It's either Hangouts or YouTube or Hangouts Google on Air.
No, I don't think it was like it went from like
Hangouts
to Hangouts on Air to Google Live or YouTube Live. I don't know.
I just checked. It's Hangouts on Air. There's video.
Yeah. There you go. So you can go back to that one too. We'll put the link in the show notes.
It might be fun to take a screenshot of that and a screenshot of today with him.
Yeah, webcams weren't as good back then.
Yeah.
Everybody looks all grainy.
We have a message that was sent in from Tim Lennon from the Drupal Association, congratulating us on 300 episodes. You guys like to hear that?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Stephen, John, Nick, congratulations on 300 episodes. That's an awesome achievement. It's been really great to be a regular guest talking on the show, whether we've been talking about new initiatives in the Drupal community, updates to the tools, or just having a chat. You've always made me feel comfortable, made the show feel welcoming, and made the conversation natural and interesting and something that I think everyone can enjoy. So I want to thank you for that amazing content, but also I really want to thank you for all the support you give the Drupal Association. You help to promote the Drupal Cares fundraising campaign. You regularly promote Drupal Association membership. It really helps us so that we can help the community. Here's to 300 more.
Oh, Tim, 300 more.
He wants to get us to 600.
Ambitious.
I know. Everybody keeps up in the ante.
Yeah, at least Dries was like maybe another 100.
Yeah, exactly.
That's still 2 years of work. Have fun, guys.
I mean, hey, listen, it's like job security, right?
Yeah, we're gonna be 85, episode 5,000.
Oh man.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, that was great. Great to hear from Tim. And he's always willing to come on the show, which is nice. And that's I feel like that's a large part of the success here is the willingness of community members to jump in and wanna come and chat with us. Seemingly whenever we ask, like, hey, what are you doing on Tuesday? You want to come and chat? Oh yeah, sure, I'd love to.
And like speaking of Dries, you say, well, he's only been on twice in 8 years. We've only asked him twice in 8 years. I mean, each time we asked, he said yes.
Yeah.
And
Right.
now 3 times today. Yeah.
He's being very accommodating.
Maybe we can get him in the next 25 to 50 episodes. We'll see. We'll get that on his calendar. Before we move on to another stat break, I would like to go back to Tim's recording for a second. I think overall, Tim and Heather and the Drupal Association in general has been super supportive of our show and coming on and doing things. And I think that's important to recognize, because without that support, I don't know if we would have made it to 300. But more stats. We got more stats. Nick went crazy with the stats, so we got stats for you. So module of the week. There was a thing that we used to do. It was called the module of the week. The first module of the week was in episode 2, if you remember back that far. And it was a module called Module Filter. And all this module did, and I'm going to say all, I don't want to minimize it, but all this module did was filter your module page so you could easily find modules that you were looking to install or uninstall. And that functionality is now in core. So module filter is no longer needed. But back in episode 2, it was a much needed piece of functionality.
And you can trace back the fact that it got into core directly to episode 2 when we featured it on Talking Drupal.
Sure. The power.
There's a direct line.
I don't know about that. I'm going to let the historians work on figuring that line out. It's a very squiggly line, if you will. So you might be asking when the last module of the week was. Well, that was episode 154 with the MailChimp module. MailChimp was the one that did us in, I guess. I don't know. But
well, we were digging deep at that point. MailChimp was the last good. There were a couple weeks in a row where we spent a good 15 minutes trying to figure out what the module of the week should be.
That's true. I mean, last stat here, we went 116 episodes or modules of the week. So I mean, we had a good run, but after 116, you're kind of, as Nick said, digging deep for like, oh, what's the SQL query altering module that I used 3 weeks ago? What was the name of that one? I don't remember.
With one install.
Yeah. It's interesting that we've had recent requests from listeners to bring that segment back. And it was, I don't know if you guys remember, but we did talk about it at the beginning of the year when we were doing a planning meeting.
Yep.
That maybe we would consider bringing that back again, or maybe in some kind of other form. But I think people liked it and miss it. Well, they haven't had it for 4 years, so they can't miss it too much. But
yeah, I think it's also something that. Go ahead, Jason.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think I always learned something from that, because I think what is interesting about how each of us works with Drupal is we have these different go-tos, these different shortcuts that we gravitate to. I've always picked up on ones that are in other people's defaults, like that sort of stack that you always start with. And I find especially it's the little helpers that can make such a big difference in improving the user experience or improving setup time, or just integration with stuff, and especially when there are multiple ways to do things and somebody else has already figured out, like, this is a combination that I find really useful, and I know this module works, it's up to date, and so whatever that little mix is, I think that's why people liked it, is that for this population of people that listens to the show, there's going to be a segment of them that is struggling with that same issue. Yep. And like, there it is right there. It's like, oh, I should just add that. Like last week, when on last week's episode, there was one to the entity usage light, or entity media usage, or media entity usage, whatever that was perfect. To be able to list that all on one node, all those things that people might want to edit, because that's always, I think, the biggest challenge is when you use media items on a page. If you want to edit the source media item, unless you build in a shortcut yourself, there's not a quick and easy way to do that without having to go under content to media and search for it. And this gives you that shortcut to go update that one image or update that one file. So I totally get why people would dig seeing that come back. And I bet we've got a good store of them now.
I mean, I think for me, it's always been like putting them into my weekly update or putting them into the actual show content as opposed to calling them out. Like, especially with like, if I do a presentation, I like to include modules because I think that's always valuable. I think after the module of the week kind of went away, that's where the default came in, where like we put them more in line with the content. But hey, doesn't mean it can't come back. Like we could find another 200 modules to talk about.
Some of my favorite episodes, one of them was fairly recent. It was last year. It was part of the Getting John to Read program. We had, it was actually a guest that John suggested. We had John O'Bacon on to talk about, I think, people-powered community. I just remember so it's kind of outside the Drupal community. I think he used to work for Canonical. And it was just a fascinating show, and John showing the book on stream if you watch it in the video. But I remember, it was just a really tight episode. I really enjoyed it, learned a lot, and it was a kind of another non-Drupal episode.
Yeah, that was another great episode, and I didn't pick that one because I didn't want to seem like a fanboy, but that was a good one for me. And again, I think Jono puts out some interesting content, free videos, free emails, that sort of thing. So
it's episode 265 for those following along. Then my next one is, I guess we do have 300 episodes because episode 000.
There you go.
We released. So that's a fun one. When I was putting these stats together, I watched part of that episode. And the first thing is Steven saying something like, "Hello, everybody, insert intro music here."
Remember the intro
and then
music?
I remember... Yeah. And I remember in the beginning, like that's how Steven used to do it. Like he would actually play it, I think through his mixer, the way that we played Tim's clip today. Yeah. And certainly gotten more sophisticated since then. But yeah, that was the first one. I think it was a shorter episode. A little rough around the edges, but yeah, it was the start of something great.
Were we doing post-production back then, or we were just doing like
that was the Hangout.
Yeah,
everything was
recorded a hangout and then it goes. Yeah, I think back then I would make edits to the MP3 files if they needed to be done, but whatever was recorded in the hangout was there.
We're going to Twitch next week, and there's going to be no edits.
Hey, listen! Don't make jokes like that. This is a pretty heavy episode for the listeners. Okay, they might take you seriously. Yeah. We are not going to Twitch.
Yeah, there's no plans of that. Then there's so many favorites. I had a lot of trouble paring them down. But another one, so I tried to pick another older episode that kind of stood out to me. And I just remember the episode with Wade Wingler. He was with Easter Seals and he talked about assistive technology.
Yeah.
And I think that was around the time that we had Brian, I don't remember his last name, but he was the keynote speaker at NedCamp that year. And talked about accessibility.
Begins with a C.
Charleston.
That's it.
Charleston. Yeah. One of the best keynotes I've ever been to, not to toot our own horn since we invited him to the conference, but it was, around that same time, I think. And they both stood out as really strong. So for our next stat break, over the years, we've had a couple of episodes where we jumped on and we didn't have a topic. We still wanted to release an episode. So the first time we did that, we called it Off the Cuff. That was episode 19. We had 5 of those in total. Then we started doing episodes called This and That, which are basically the same thing. We didn't have any show notes ready. So we kind of came up with, I think This and That were a little bit more polished. I think we came up with a couple of minor topics, each of us, whereas Off the Cuff was really we just jumped on a call and spoke for 45 minutes to an hour. We had 4 episodes of This and That so far. And then
look at it this way, right? Like over 300 episodes to kind of like phone it in for 23 episodes isn't all that bad.
No. 9 episodes.
9.
Episode 19 was the first time we had it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
only
9 episodes. That's even better. Look at that. Like we
So John has phoned it in for an additional 14 episodes.
Yeah, I phoned it in for 295 episodes.
No doubt.
So as we mentioned, we've had some guests. The longest break that we had between a guest's first and last appearance, or first and second appearance for that matter, was Jen Lampton. She was on October 2nd, 2013 and July 9th, 2019, both times to talk about Backdrop.
6 years, like almost 6 years.
6 years and 200 something episodes, I think. It was episode 17 and episode 218.
So Jen, it's time to come back.
Yeah, we need to hear from you and see how Backdrop is going.
Great. So I've got a few. I don't have specific episodes that I could come up with that I liked, but it's interesting. The ones that we just labeled as calling it in or not showing up, those were actually my favorites to record. I loved it when we kind of didn't have an agenda, and maybe it's because I didn't have to prepare one. Maybe this is why, that we kind of jumped on, put a quick agenda together 15 minutes before and then recorded. And I think those are always my favorite shows to do. Actually considered doing them like once a month at one point, I think, because I enjoyed them so much. So those, I think that's one thing that I liked. And another thing is the pre and post show discussions I always enjoyed. And when we weren't recording, those were always so great fun. We've had super great guests, and it would be unfair for me to like pinpoint any that I love the most, but I'm going to do that. I don't know why this is, but I really enjoyed the episodes we had with Jacob Rockowitz. We had another one last week. I think it's because he's always so he's like really good at what he does, and he's always so frank and honest about what he's working on. And I just I love those. And Jeff, guess which Jeff?
Probably Jeff Geerling.
Yeah. So
Geerling.
Jeff Geerling,
Guy.
Yeah, Geerling guy is just he's like one of those guys that I always admired in terms of what he's done in the Drupal world. And having him on was always I think he's been on twice. Does anyone know? Maybe 3 times?
He was one of the re-records.
Yeah,
He was re-recorded
and
an episode of him.
maybe that's another reason why it sticks out with him. It's like the only episode that we actually completely recorded with a guest and lost completely and had to redo it, which was really embarrassing. Yeah, it was that was kind of user error too. Yeah, it was user error.
Yeah. That's when the OBS backup recording started.
Yeah, that's when we started to do backup seriously. Those are the things that stick out to me. Speaking of Jacob, he had some kind words for us last week that we thought we would play for you now.
So can I give you a 30-second congratulations? Because I have the opportunity. It's amazing what you guys have accomplished. I mean, also just the rhythm that you set up in COVID where you haven't missed a beat. It's incredible the amount of content you're producing on a weekly basis. And 300 is a huge number. Just congratulations.
Thank you, Jacob, for that compliment again.
Jacob hammered in on the content that was created, and thinking back over the last 8 years and like 300 episodes, I'm like, man, like it's been 8 years. I know that a lot has changed in 8 years, right? But it's just been like this thing that just kind of keeps on going, which is awesome. And I think, personally, I think it'll keep on going, provided Nick and I don't muck it up. But yeah, I don't know. It is a blur. Time is weird.
I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I kind of break up my life over certain periods. Like, when something is happening, it's like, childhood, and then you're in college. I mean, Talking Drupal has kind of been that for me. Like, I got married right before Talking Drupal started. And so it's like this age of my life has, Talking Drupal has just been part of it. We've taken a couple of short breaks over the years, but it's really just been kind of the most clients have changed. I still work on Drupal, that kind of thing, but Talking Drupal has always been there. So it's going to be strange without you on, Stephen. That's for sure.
Hey, a few other stats for you. And Nick, yeah, thanks for putting all this together. The most frequent guests, I mean, the first name surprised us a bit when we were talking about this because she hasn't been on in a long time, but at the beginning of like the first quarter of our shows, she was on most often. That's Kathy Beck. Still working at Oomph. And do you know, remember, Nick, what the number is? How many episodes it is? Is it 9?
5. All these people are on 5 times.
Oh, 5 times. Oh, I thought it was higher than that. And we've got Kevin Thull that was on 5 times, Jacob, as we just mentioned, and Tim Lennon as well. So those are the most frequent guests. And we also have a note here that we have recorded on video 3 different ways. And we've already mentioned this actually just a few minutes ago, but it's Google Hangouts, YouTube over the air, and Zoom.
What's the so maybe a little insight there, Stephen, from the video side of things. What's the rationale between the change there? I'm assuming it's stability and quality, but was there something else?
Part of it, they don't exist anymore.
Yeah, Google kills its products as soon as they get good.
Silly me.
Yeah. And we wanted to we did video like at the beginning because it was super convenient. You just pushed a button and it recorded the audio. Then we tried to improve. We went through a period of time where we really want the audio to be good. And I think the audio on our shows is really done well. So it's always audio first for us. So we paid more attention to getting the audio quality good over the years. And during the time, maybe 5 years ago, 7 years ago, it was harder to do that. The technology has really caught up.
That's
and
right.
it's easier to create better audio now for everyone.
I'm now remembering that there was some time there where we didn't actually have YouTube videos.
Yeah, we went from probably hundreds of episodes, maybe 100 episodes without any video.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, all right.
And now we've moved to the model of we record it locally and then do some post-production work on the video and then release it. So still audio first and trying to improve the video as time goes on.
Still audio first, although the most effort is put into the video.
Yep.
Which is kind of interesting.
It's good. You can get your Talking Drupal however you like. You want to see it, you want to listen to it. It's up to you.
I think it's one of the things that I have appreciated. And for those who don't know, I sort of am in the Drupal world some, and then often off at other sort of more general web design and development conferences, and been on an assortment of different podcasts and shows, kind of across the spectrum, and sort of drifting back in and out of this one. I'm always impressed with the amount of care that goes into the creation of it. And it doesn't matter if it's an off-the-cuff episode. We've all got a ton of experience and things to share, and I think we've all clicked well together. I mean, and because we've all known each other for well over 10 years. We had our book club together, we've worked together, we've done these shows and conferences and talks and everything together, and that I think it has made it feel so easy for me to like drop back in these past few weeks, and it felt like a good comfortable pair of shoes to just kind of sit back down and drop into the conversation again, and I've really enjoyed it.
Just interesting is I never thought about this until we had who did we have on a few weeks ago? And I just
Jason
lost the blink.
Evangelo.
It was Jason Evangelo, who's also a podcaster and has done it for a really, really long time. And one of the comments he said, I think after the show ended, was, "Boy, you guys run a tight ship." He's like, "You guys, like the way you did your show notes and the way we just kind of plowed right through this thing." And we've never ever looked at how anyone else did a show. We just kind of did it our own way. And we've never had other podcasters on. So like, I don't know how different our process is from other people at all. We've never explored whatever other people did or anything. We just kind of did it.
I mean, I've been on a lot of podcasts and I don't think, I'm not sure if there's maybe like one or two others that had like as detailed show notes and preparation. I mean, most of the time they just, come on and talk about fonts or something. And so, it's just really connect at the appropriate time and we're just going to start talking. And that,
interesting.
That's kind of it. Yeah. So, I mean, I think you guys have always done a good job of having that structure of, kind of wider focus and then come into what the guest is there to talk about and having that a lot of shows are just about whoever the guest is that time, rather than being, this is sort of a Drupal first kind of podcast, and then it happens to have a guest. And I think that is one of the things that helps this one feel a little different from a lot of other podcasts.
So Jason, I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit here. Well, you were on, the beginning episodes of the show. Did you listen while you weren't on the show? Are you a Talking Drupal listener?
I will admit that I'm not, but I also don't really listen to any other podcasts either.
Okay, well that's fair.
So
I don't feel so bad about that.
I am heartbroken.
When I was working at Fresh Tilled Soil and then at Isovera, so it was like 3 years of commuting every day up to the Boston area, I listened to podcasts all the time. And so this was, one of those things that I would listen to. But I stopped that about 3 years ago, and I've probably listened to 3 podcasts since. I mean, maybe it's a little more than that, but it's not a lot, because I don't work well with that when I'm trying to do anything else. I know some people can have a podcast on and then be doing other things, and my brain just doesn't work like that. And in the mornings, the only other times that I have like blocks of time is if I'm riding and I don't want anything. Not to mention the fact that it's just patently a really dumb idea to have things in your ears when you're riding a bike. Like you need to have an awareness of the.
Listening to the world around you while riding a bike is dangerous. Interesting.
It's illegal,
especially on 200-mile round trips, right?
No, the longest I've done is 130 miles. So I haven't done a 200-mile ride. I don't really have a desire to do that, but I do like a 200K ride. I'm okay with that. But it, you block out the sounds around you, even with like transparency with these earbuds and stuff. Like there's a lot of really terrible and kind of mean drivers out there, and I don't want to take any chances with that. And I enjoy the cycling to turn my brain off, not necessarily keep feeding it. And the same goes with my dog walks in the morning. The only time I pull a phone out is to take a photo, and I try and keep the technology away the rest of that. So it just hasn't really kind of fit into life.
So do you have any favorite Talking Drupal episodes, Jason?
I do. And I dug back into the archives when I was on the show, and I picked these 2 because I think they were really, I don't know if the right word is prescient, or how you want to pronounce it, or just, I don't know. I think they're super relevant even today. And those were talking about mobile-friendly Drupal in episode 72, because it is so. This interesting little tidbit: internet usage in the United States last year among adults was 89% mobile. I mean, stop and think about that for a second.
Yeah.
So this is not mobile first. This is basically mobile only.
Yeah.
And so, you put it in that context and you think about, like, during the pandemic, the importance and prevalence of access to government services and companies, and they do it with this because that's what's in your hand at the time. It just kind of reframes how you think about stuff. And we were talking about that and thinking about it 6 years ago. And I think, and yes, lots of other people were too, but I think Drupal was still not a primarily mobile first existence at that point. We didn't have responsive admin themes. There was a lot of things that really just weren't the norm yet when we recorded that episode. And the other one that is just super relevant to me was episode 55, the site versus system. And that is so much a part of what I've been doing the last 3 years, first with the state of Georgia and now with Rhode Island, where we're not building a system to make a site. We're building a platform to make hundreds of sites. And so in thinking about the design and the flexibility and the content model, the publishing process, the workflows, the ability to differentiate design from one site to the next while still maintaining consistency it's a design system, on, I don't want to say on steroids, but it's a design system really being pushed to the limits of how it's being applied in this kind of setting. And I wish I had mentioned this when Dries was on, because it's, this is on Site Factory. And so, we're kind of taking all of these things together to, the very limits, of what you can do with Drupal at scale using Acquia's platform. And it's super exciting to see, we talked about this. I mean, episode 55, what was that? 2013, 2014, early 2014. I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah, probably. 2014, July 2nd, 2014.
Yeah. So we were talking about this a lot earlier than many people were really thinking about using Drupal in that way. And I think John and I had actually done some work along those lines with CVS when we created what was sort of like a distribution, but not really one, to do subsites for CVS. And having that is kind of like the thing in the back of our mind, and seeing like how it led into all these other things. So that's the stuff that I think I'm really proud of with this podcast. Is
another instance on how Talking Drupal has led the way.
Certainly, I think that we've had a good perspective on wider web things, as well as what's going on in the Drupal world, and you bring those things together, and I think you get a pretty powerful combination. And I think that's what's really pretty interesting about looking at the history of the topics that have been covered on the show.
I couldn't agree with you more. Just to give the listeners a heads up, here's where we are at the show. We got a couple more, one more stat break. We're actually going to do a module of the week this week, and then we're going to finish up with some memorable moments for us. So let's jump into those stats. So I'm not going to go year by year, but over the years we've averaged about what, Nick, 20 to 30 episodes a year?
30 to 35 episodes, I think. We'll put the exact numbers in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll put them in the show notes. The biggest year, 2014, we did 49 episodes that year. Some years we did every 2 weeks. Some years we did every week. 2020, we were up to 42 episodes. So we're inching into the 40s there, which is awesome. So earlier on, we talked about module of the week, and in our show notes, it said module of the week ? So I removed the question mark and filled it in. So for those folks that like the module of the week, here, you get a 300.
You want it? You got it. Here
you get a 300 special module of the week. A couple of weeks ago, I did a demo for some coworkers on content moderation within Drupal using Drupal's core content moderation functionality. I added, let's see, I'm looking at the code, the repository now. I added 3 modules to that instance to be able to have a pretty robust content moderation system. We're going to talk about 2 of the modules here because they're specific. The other one was the diff module, which just gives you diffs on revisions. When you're looking at revisions, you can see the diffs between 2 pieces of content.
Diff has already been a module of the week, by the way.
I'm sure it has. These 2 modules, though, Workbench Access and Workbench Email, are great to allow for, as you figured, adding access rules and emails to the moderation system. These 2 modules plus Core's content moderation system, I was able to build what I thought pretty full-featured content moderation workflow. Workbench Access gives you the ability to set access permissions based on taxonomy or menu items, and gives you the ability to set access permissions per content type as well. So you can have kind of a really big, complicated access permission scheme with that module. Workbench Email just allows you to fire off emails when content moves from one state to another, or something gets updated, just to give people a heads up, like, hey, you got to review this. So that'll probably be a future show topic, I'm imagining, but thought I would throw that in to the module of the week segment. Any of you guys use any of those modules before?
Yeah, not for a long time though.
Well,
but yeah, they're key if you need them.
I mean, Workbench was kind of the gold standard before it was built into Core. So yeah. I guess D6 and 7 that was really kind of the main way that you could add that sort of thing. For Rhode Island, we actually have pretty much stuck with just the core workflow management. And we basically decided that, because I was originally thinking about something like Workbench Access where you could be more granular about what people could access. But we decided to gate it with when you push something to submitting it for review. That's like all an author can do. So they could edit anything on the site, but they can't make it live. All they can do is submit it for review, and that triggers an email to the people in the content publisher role, and they can review those things and act on it. We may decide to get more granular later, but it's so hard to think about all the things that you might need, for 100 sites to be on a platform when you're just working on the first one.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you got to start off with a architecture behind it and thinking about how that's going to be built. I will say that this demo was, I think, Drupal 8 or 9, so it's these things are more current than 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, then the Rhode Island system is built in 9, so it's using the latest core stuff. I think we might have used rules to create the email notification.
Yeah, it's another beauty of Drupal. There are multiple ways to go about things, right? So let's close out with some memorable moments from the last 8+ years, 300+ episodes of Talking Drupal.
Yeah, so first one's from me. Like, I just remember over the years we've gotten together for dinner a couple of times, and whether at a restaurant or at houses. I remember we had a game night at Jason's once. I think we had a fire at Steven's house. Just the kind of offline Talking Drupal moments are something I always remember. I think I was looking through Twitter the other day and saw the pictures from the game night. Maybe I was just looking through personal photos. Yeah, it was a good time. Definitely one of my favorite moments from the show. Although listeners weren't there, so they didn't experience it.
And those weren't recorded, which is probably better.
No.
I guess some of mine are similar. And this is a little bit off tangent, and not related to this show, but it is. So shortly, I don't know if it was before or after I suggested we start a podcast, I also suggested we start a Drupal camp.
It's almost immediately after.
Yeah, I think they were both within maybe 3 months of each other.
Steve and his bright ideas.
Steve might not have been very busy that year and wanted to get busy quick.
That's right. You guys have just waiting to hear what I'm going to suggest we do next.
Gosh, see what time it is?
So a memorable moment I have is related to that was the first Drupal Ned camp we did. And I don't remember the year, 2014, I think it was. And it was that after party. It was probably like a year into getting our podcast up and running, and also joining together with a few other people to get a Drupal camp running. And that after party, I just remember just like the relief of, it felt like a great success of pulling a camp off and just pulling everything together at that time. It was a fun time.
Yeah, it was a good venue at Brown. We had it on Thayer Street, right? At one of the restaurants up the street.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. We were at Brown University first year. It was great fun.
First 2 years.
It's interesting. I share that sentiment every year at the Ned Camp after party.
Right,
I just sit there and go, man, I made it, and it didn't crash and burn. Yes.
Right, exactly. The other thing that stands out to me is, and it's related to me leaving too, is the times during the 8 years since I've kind of like ran the show, is I got burned out at times and needed breaks. And each one of those times I would come to John and Nick and say, you know what, I think we need to like shut down for a month or shut down for a few weeks. I need to catch up. I just need a break from this. And these guys are always super supportive of just whatever I needed, whatever I wanted to do. They were always, no problem. And same thing when I came to them, either the end of January or beginning of February this year, I had made up my mind that it was time for me to leave the weekly show. And since then, I've transitioned all of the things I was doing to them. I've kind of had a cakewalk over the past month. And they've just been super supportive and great friends. And I want to thank you guys for that. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Well,
I think there was one other one that kind of stood out to me, and that was when I met Rob Obin. He was a former colleague of John's at Oomph. He still works at Oomph. And I remember meeting him at NetCamp, him walking up and saying, "Hi, how you doing, Nick?" And I was like, "Oh, sorry, I haven't met you. What's your name?" He's like, "Oh, I'm Rob. We've met." And I was like, "Oh," and I remember feeling so guilty, like walking away with like, "Oh my God, how did I forgot him?" And then like 10 minutes later, he comes back up to me and goes, "Actually, I just realized we've never met, but I listened to Talking Drupal, so I recognize your voice and your face and figured since I'm seeing you, you must know me." And
That's great.
worked with him on a few projects since, so he's a great guy. But I just remember like feeling so guilty that I forgot somebody, and then I'm coming back. Thank God he did, or I would have just felt guilty forever.
Eternally guilty. So my best favorite, most memorable thing is around that as well. Not necessarily recording the podcast week after week, but going to Drupal events, DrupalCon, local camps, so on and so forth, and having people go, "Hey, you're that guy from Talking Drupal," and I'm always like blown away. I think the first time it happened, I was sitting somewhere. I might have been with Steven. I don't even remember. I was sitting somewhere. We were having a conversation, and somebody just like slowly turns around from like the row in front of me and goes, "Hey, you're that guy from Talking Drupal." And I said, "Hey, how's it going?" And he's like, "Good. I recognized your voice." And I'm like, "Cool. That's awesome." And,
DrupalCon Austin.
Was that when that was?
That's my bet.
Okay.
Did we record an episode there too?
I mean, we might.
Yeah, I think so.
It's been a long 8 years, Jason. I can't remember every time I recorded an episode from DrupalCon, but it's happened a couple of different times throughout the history of the show. And I think at this point, it's worth noting that as much as the Drupal community has supported us by showing up when we've asked them to, it's really goes back to the listeners, and nothing gives me greater pride than when people stop and say, "Hey, you're that guy from Talking Drupal, and you guys really helped me understand the caching system, views, like X, Y, and Z thing. Oh, I really love it when Jason zings you really good." I'm like, cool. I'm like, if I'm giving you some sort of enjoyment through this, then mission accomplished. So I'd like to thank the listeners at this point for listening to us for 300 plus episodes and 8+ years.
Yeah, if you think about that, that's almost 300 hours of listening to us.
Well, if you count that home automation, it's like it's a little longer.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to you guys too, because when I think about our the arc of the knowing each other and friendship and the things that we've been involved in with the book club and Drupal PVD, starting this podcast, starting NedCamp, all of the trips, all of the projects we worked on together, all the get-togethers. It's that's a core of friendship that happens to have also centered around Drupal, that has been going on for 14 years, and that's a big part of life, no matter how you look at it. Yeah. And it's been really great to kind of come back into this a little bit. I've been a little bit more involved in Drupal this past year too. And it's kind of nice. It feels like a little bit like coming home. It always does. So thanks for everybody for making that feel so welcome.
Yeah. And I'd like to thank the listeners too. Obviously we wouldn't do this without you guys. So always good to hear what people think, joining us on Drupal Slack. So if you have any questions or feedback for us, you can reach out to us on Twitter at Talking Drupal. You can chat with us on the Talking Drupal channel on Drupal Slack. Like this morning, we were chatting with Juan about variable fonts. And you can send us an email at show@talkingdrupal.com. You can always get show updates by signing up for our newsletter at talkingdrupal.com/newsletter.
And I think you know that you can promote your Drupal camp on Talking Drupal, but if you don't, you can learn more about it at talkingdrupal.com/camp promo.
Thank you again to the listeners as well as our patrons for supporting Talking Drupal. Your support is greatly appreciated. You can learn more about becoming a patron at talkingdrupal.com and choose the Become a Patron button. This episode, the raw feed that we send to our patrons of this episode is going to be a good one. So, that's one of the benefits of being a patron. All right. We've covered all of the things, or at least most of them at this point. So, I think we're going to bring it home here. And, I thank all of you for joining us for the 300th. I thank Dries and our special guests for sending those pre-recordings. Nick Laughlin, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, how would they go about doing that?
You can find me at Nixvan, NICXVAN, pretty much everywhere.
Steven, what about you?
As always, StevenCross.com with a PH.
Jason?
At jpamentel, JPAMENTAL, on pretty much everything from CodePen to GitHub to Instagram for all the pups, and rwt.io if you want to learn more about web typography. And like with our conversation with Juan earlier, ways that you can improve your core web vitals by implementing your web fonts more comprehensively.
And Jason's on Drupal Slack now, so that's another way you can get a hold of him, right? And as always, I'm John Picozzi. You can find me on all the major social networks at John Picozzi, on Drupal.org as well, at John Picozzi. And if you're interested in EPAM, you can find out more about us at epam.com.
And if you've enjoyed listening, we've enjoyed talking.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
That's 300.